Hello and welcome to Higher or Lower, brought to you by Spreadex and oddschecker. This is the game where we take Spreadex's spreads ahead of the Premier League season, look at the midpoint and go either higher if we think it's a buy or lower if we think it's a sell. I'm your host, George Elek, and I'm delighted to be joined by two expert guests, Jack Wright and the returning, having been ill, Dan Worth. And I think that was quite a good tactical illness there from Dan because last week we didn't do particularly well. Jack and I agreed on pretty much every market bar one.
Yes.
I came out on top in that one,
Yeah,
so
right.
that's good for me. That was total goal minutes in the Villa-Everton game at 138. I said high, you said lower, it made up 168.
Yeah.
And that meant that I got, you got 25% right.
Oh,
so you were half, and I got one more than you right. So I got 37.5%, you got 25%.
Tough week.
Not as tough as it was for the guys watching who got none right. So yeah, you can play along with us over on Twitter or X. But last week we put three questions to you. All three you guys said higher. All three ended up lower. So not great there. And that means so far over the course of the shows, I'm on 53% correct. You're on 47, Jack. Dan's on 43, which looked bad last week, and suddenly you're cruising back towards us. And you guys at home are on 33%. Before we get into the first market we're going to be looking at, there is an offer from Spreadex as well for new customers only. Bet 10, get 40. You can find out the details of that up on the Spreadex website. But effectively, you create a new account, you bet £10 and you get £40 worth of free bets. And these include a £5 free bet, two £5 total goals bets on the spreads. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already got an account and sign up there in order to make the most of that offer. But time for us to get into the game. And first up is Chelsea versus Luton. The market here is Chelsea leading minutes. So that means, the makeup is how long Chelsea are ahead in a game for. Injury time doesn't count for this, so even if there's 55 minutes of injury time, which seems eminently possible these days, it would still settle at just the amount of time that they're ahead within the kind of parameters of 0 to 45, 45 to 90. The midpoint here is 45.5. So basically, a half of football.
It is, isn't it?
Are we going higher or are we going lower? 3, 2, 1.
Ooh.
See, I thought this would happen.
Interesting.
I know that I'm a big Luton advocate this season. I think under Rob Edwards they're going to be fine. Obviously didn't start too well. The fixture computer, fabled computer, hasn't been particularly kind to them. Mm-hmm. And I think there might just be a little bit of complacency around Chelsea right now as to actually how they're still quite good. I know they got beaten 3-1 by West Ham on the day. David Moyes came afterwards and was like, Chelsea are an incredibly good team and we had to ride our luck there and we managed to get through. And that's how the game kind of went. If you told anybody at the end of the first half that it was going to be West Ham who'd come back and win that game in the second half, you'd have been very surprised. They were unlucky not to beat Liverpool at home on their opening game of the season. If they put in a similar display to that here, I think they'll be ahead for plenty of it. And for Luton, I just think when you are a side like Luton, you probably look at a trip to Chelsea away as just being like damage limitation here. Like we don't have to risk fitness issues or whatever else. It's just go there, do the best we can. If we don't come away with anything, then let's not worry about it too much. So I think Chelsea at home, I know recently Stamford Bridge hasn't been a great place for them, but I just feel like Chelsea are a lot better than basically the market is generally suggesting. It's only a matter of time till Jackson scores, till things click.
Yeah.
And that's why I would say I could see them going ahead within the first half here and then not being seen again. But you guys disagree. Jack, what's your reason?
It was a tough call because obviously the traders here put it right in the middle.
Yeah.
So let's put it in our court, certainly. And I felt I might have been swimming against the tide a little bit here by going lower. A few factors. Luton have had 2 weeks to prepare, of course, so I'm going to see that as a positive. We all like Rob Edwards, not many as much as yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's on your screen again.
He is, yeah. That's why I keep looking down.
Lovely hair. But so look, he's obviously going to set Luton up for this one. Massive underdogs. We've got, I checked out, like I said, the Spreadex fixed market here, and they're around about 1.21 for this Chelsea. So a similar price when the two met in the Cup last year. That was 3-2 to Chelsea, albeit at Kenilworth Road, of course. But they were ahead only for the final 12 minutes in that one. So
who was Chelsea manager then?
A different manager indeed. Both under different managers indeed.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. I'd just say that Chelsea, they haven't led for a minute yet this season. of course, they've got a chance. I think, generally speaking, and I'm sure you'll come on to the general audience here, what their thoughts on this will be that this is Chelsea going to rock up and roll Luton over 4-0. I just find that they are being a little bit wasteful in front of goal. They are missing opportunities. Obviously, missed a penalty at the weekend as well. Jackson is still trying to find his feet. They've also been really unlucky with injuries. Chukwuemeka, the latest now to be out with a serious injury, added to Reece James and Kunku as well, and Fofana obviously before the season even started. So Brighton, for me, took 36 minutes to break Luton down. That's what I'm kind of hanging my hat on a little bit here. That a side that are absolutely in the peak of their powers at the moment did take a while to get the breakthrough. They've scored 8 goals across the 2 games, and those 2 late goals against Luton obviously put an extra shine on the game. So I just feel that Chelsea are a little bit disjointed at the moment. They are still trying to find their feet. They've got players a lot of players have been added into the mix all at once, and it is going to be that little bit disjointed. You're only really still looking at probably Sterling as being of that age, which would be in the peak of their powers, either very young or a couple that are more senior than that. I'm not going to be pointing out people's ages, that's for sure, but that's my reason anyway.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I see what you mean. I mean, I personally, just on the point about Luton having an extra week to prepare, I think at this stage of the season, that's possibly a negative rather than a positive, where if we were talking about this in February after, a grueling season so far, I'm sure Rob Edwards would want to play as many games as possible, especially after the opening day defeat where they looked a little bit undercooked. Dan, what do you reckon?
Well, Jack, you pretty much covered everything off there. Not too much to add. So we could move on. The only point I was going to make is that I think Chelsea have a lot of players that have proven in the first couple of games that are massively dependent on confidence. And I'd argue that most of them, bar Sterling that you mentioned, maybe, are going to be very low on that. We're talking about Friday night, which can sometimes be dodgy and throw up a few surprises. I mentioned before, I think we all agreed actually before the season started that Luton are going to frustrate teams. And I think we'll see that against Chelsea. So that's why I've gone lower.
Fair enough.
But on the other side, Twitter has completely disagreed with me, which I guess after last week's performance I can take.
Disaster for me.
Yeah, confidence from. But 63% of the guys at home have gone higher here, which I guess is just fans super confident that Chelsea are going to come firing out and
I would have thought that there'd be more kind of votes against Chelsea given the general perception of them at the moment. That's interesting. We'll see how that gets on.
Could be a nervy Stamford Bridge, I think, and Luton are that sort of side. Obviously, for our side of it, we're hoping that they're going to go there and be super aggressive and get up in their faces and
definitely
and get a few boos ringing around Stamford Bridge early doors.
Chelsea go ahead early. Right, second game we're going to cover here is Bournemouth against Tottenham, 2 teams under new management, and we're looking at Tottenham total goal minutes here. So this is the amount of minutes accumulated over Tottenham's goals. So if they score no goals, it's set at 0. If they score 1 goal after 10 minutes, it's set at 10. If they score a goal after 10 minutes and another goal in the 92nd minute, that again will be 90 because the injury time doesn't get factored in here, and that would make up 100. So you can see there the cumulative minutes that they're scoring. 94 is the midpoint here. Are we going higher or lower? 3, 2, 1. Jack.
Ooh, just me then. Okay. Yeah, tough one to call. It's another tough one to call. You were cheeky with the markets this week. You're right to say 2 new managers here. I've been very impressed with the first signs of Ange ball for certain. I'll get my negatives for my bet out of the way. Obviously 220 here last season for Spurs. 2 games last season, so plenty of goals about. What I've gone for is that the one Bournemouth home game so far this season, albeit against West Ham, was 51 minutes for West Ham goals there, and the only Spurs away game so far this season was 56 minutes. Who scored goals for Spurs this season? Romero, Emerson Royale and Sarr. Is that sustainable? Probably not. Own goal obviously in there as well. But the main thing I'm hanging my hat on for this particular bet is Areola, obviously at Bournemouth now. Again, another manager I'm excited to see with a full season in the Premier League, first season in the Premier League. And I looked at his form for Rayo, or his way he went about things at Rayo, and he was particularly successful against the better sides. Obviously, we know that he massively punched above his weight at Rayo. Against Barcelona, across the 2 seasons he was there, he took 10 points from them and only conceded 1 goal. So my assumption here is that he's going to certainly set up and to counteract what Spurs have to offer. The interesting stat as well that I saw during the week was that across the big 5 European leagues, only Bayern forced more high turnovers that led to shots than Rayo, which is an incredible stat for a side that we know is like kind of one of the paupers, I suppose you'd call them in La Liga, and certainly in the big European leagues. So on that basis, that I think he's got those tools to be able to do that. And I've been very impressed with that Tottenham midfield 3 in the first couple of games of the season. Yeah. But the injury doubt to Maddison was enough to sway me. That creative force, 2 assists so far from him. We highlighted him at the start of the campaign to be a key player. If he is missing, I think they will be cautious with him. If he is missing, then I think that will be enough to just nullify the Tottenham goals. Look, it's quite a high line. Where they're going to score the goals. They scored 2 against Brentford away from home, and we still went under that line. So that's where I'm going. Tough call.
Well, I just want to say I've gone higher here based on the fact that Maddison does play. Okay. So I'm thinking positively there.
Right. That doesn't show up on the P&L. Like, if he's
out. Yeah, well, I've got to take risks.
How many asterisks you have?
Yeah. We're totting them up. But I think that the key thing for me here is that Spurs are coming into this game the complete opposite of Chelsea. I think they should be buoyant after their win over United. And I think they can just go after Bournemouth. The stat that I wanted to bring up is that in the last 10 for Spurs in the league, they've hit 103 on average goal minutes. So that would obviously, that would be enough to be a winner here. I like this market over the total goal minutes market, mainly because I don't think Bournemouth will get involved. And that line is 50 above the Tottenham goal minutes. So yeah, I quite like this, going above Spurs goal minutes. I'm expecting them to score, and hopefully they don't have to rely on defenders to do so.
Yeah, it's interesting where you've got 2 new managers here who both look to play like a very aggressive pressing game. Like if you look at the PPDA numbers in the Premier League, which is passes per defensive action, so it kind of accounts for how often you're trying to tackle or do something defensive and press the opposition. Obviously, very small sample size early on in the season, but Tottenham have the 2nd lowest, so they're basically the 2nd best pressing team as per Opta. And Bournemouth are just behind Chelsea and Manchester United in 6th. So I think this is going to be like a game where both teams are going to look to be incredibly aggressive off the ball, and often that can kind of descend into mayhem towards the end of a game when teams get tired. And I basically just want to, I just think there are going to be lots of goals in Spurs' games. I know that the United game only finished 2-0, but that first half, how that finished 0-0 was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. Like the woodwork was hit about 5 times, great saves from both keepers. And there's going to be a game, it may not be this game, but there's going to be a game soon with Tottenham over the next 3 or 4 games where it's just going to go crazy, and I think a game's going to finish 4-4, 5-4 or something mad. And I'm happy to take a spin. That it might be a Bournemouth side at home, who, if you look at their start lineups recently, playing Semenyo, playing Solanke as well, albeit Solanke's apparently having a bid from, is it West Ham? But we'll see. I think at 94 I'm happy to take a chance that under Postecoglou we're going to continue to see lots of goal-mouth action at both ends, but I'm happy to take the Spurs line here. On to Brighton, who host West Ham. Talking about games that can descend into mayhem. We're going to look at the total goals market. This is very, very simple. It's just the amount of goals scored in the game. And the midpoint here is 3.2.
Don't fall for that line he then put then. You know he's that to. He's crafty.
Higher or lower? 3, 2, 1.
We fell for it.
Definitely fell for it.
There's no falling for anything. I'm not here to trick you. Dan, you can lead us off here. Total goals, 3.2. We're all going over, so buying total goals.
Yeah. I just think Brighton are so exciting. They've proven it already in their 2 games so far. They're top, so clearly they're the best team in the league. And they're going to prove that against West Ham, who also managed to find the net a couple of times.
3 times.
3 times. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there we go. So I think
and hit the post.
Yeah. See, look.
Yeah.
You're doing the hard work for me.
Yeah.
You don't need me here. No. But 7 of the last 8 Brighton games have been over 2.5 goals. I know 3.2, so we kind of need 4 here. We do need 4 here for it to be a winner. But I think it's definitely within the realms of possibility. Both teams looking quite strong going forward. One key thing that I wanted to point out is obviously Mavropanos. There we go. James Ward-Prowse obviously showing he's still got what it takes in the Premier League. And with the Greek Maguire in the box, that is going to be a fruitful partnership, I think. And if Mavropanos can play, I wouldn't be surprised to see him get on the score sheet this week.
I was thinking, I wonder if Ward-Prowse gets like nervous over corners in his debut, like knowing how much expected of him, but he didn't show it. Brilliant corners. Set up the goal, obviously, to open the scoring, and then set up the second goal as well, the Antonio goal too. Great debut for him. You're buying as well, Jack.
I am indeed. Yeah, Brighton under De Zerbi's goals. Basically, that's the motto here, isn't it? 119 in his 34 league games in charge. That's an average of 3.5, which is incredible over a fair stretch of time. They're averaging 2.03 goals per game themselves, so 69 goals across that period. And I think at the start of his tenure, it was a little bit slower than that, wasn't it? So it's certainly picked up pace over that time. I did look into I've used 3 as the kind of benchmark here that we kind of need. Obviously, we need more for the official win, but 3 or more goals in 24 of his 34 games in charge. That's 71%, which is a huge amount. Only 1 0-0 draw in there, which would be painful for this bet, of course. 5 games with 1 goal in it, and just 4 with 2 goals in it. 10 goals across their 2 games, of course, this season. And the crazy stat about that is obviously they're using their XG. It's actually a higher XG. It's an XG of 12 in their games this season so far. So clearly all points towards goals, and this one ended 4-0 last season as well.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you both. I think this looks like goals to me. Also worth mentioning that Mikel Antonio, who scored against Chelsea, there's no easy way to say this, but if you look back through his previous seasons, you'll see that he basically often follows up goals with goals. Like he's a player who scores in patches, and especially against Brighton's high line and his pace and his ability to run in behind, it wouldn't be a massive surprise if he got some joy as well. But Brighton are just an irresistible attacking force, aren't they? So
Antonio seemed to start seasons well as well. He got off, he went off to a flyer last season. Then I think he scored 8 in his first maybe 10 games or something.
There was a very good moment on Match of the Day where David Moyes was asked, "Isn't that classic Mikel Antonio?" And you could see him being like, no, because he rarely does it anymore. Like, I wish it was, because then it would be, he'd be a lot more prolific. But another player who is very prolific, surely soon to be England's Solly March, who has got 3 goals for the season, seems to absolutely love playing under Roberto De Zerbi. There was a time where he was like that one who used to post good XG numbers but never actually score, and now he's doing both. His goal minutes here is 15 to sell, 18 to buy, so the midpoint is 16.5. This is the total accumulated minutes that a player will score in. Are we going higher or lower than 16.5? 3, 2, 1. Dan, you've fallen
for it.
Oh my goodness.
Set your own trap. In you go.
It's a bit too soon to say, well, he's the leading scorer in the league. Just 3. Well, the main rationale I've got here, right, is that I've looked at the WhoScored data.
Right.
Solly March is the highest rated player in the Premier League since the World Cup.
Who scored under the bus at an early stage?
No, I think that's to his credit, and it's well deserved. And as you mentioned, that is down to how prolific he's been since the World Cup. And clearly, I'm hoping that continues here. His recent averages is he's averaging a goal every 55 minutes. It's been 35 minutes since his last goal. So
20 minutes and then that's it.
There we go. And I'm
2-point profit.
Yeah, I'm winning in the 20th minute.
Okay.
And we've got the rest of the game to go.
Yeah.
So I would just say that there's absolutely no way Solly March is going to score every 55 minutes for the rest of the season. So you've got to short someone when they're on 3 goals from 2 games. It's as simple as that for me. Jack?
This one cuts deep. This takes me back to our original conversations last year, the Spreadex 6, where Solly March was honoured to feature twice in my picks for the player goal minutes round, and failed me twice. So he's getting the lower.
At a much lower line than this as well.
And first one was Brentford, and the line was 6.
Yeah.
And then Villa the line was 7, which that's where we were going with it. Drew a blank then, and I remember you pulled out a stat saying he hadn't scored since 2020 at the time, so it was a 2-year drought for him. And then he hit 8 in 15 after the World Cup, so it's quite incredible. So look, done really well. 7 goals in 27 appearances under De Zerbi, or league games under De Zerbi, scoring in 6 games, and 56, 54, 99, 63, 61 and 15 were the goal minutes in there. 3 goals in 164 minutes of action, you're right, 36 and 106 with that brace last week. But he only got 74 minutes in his home game against Luton. And didn't score in the 4-0 victory that I mentioned a little while ago against West Ham last season, and only got subbed on 74 minutes then as well. So 74 minutes on the clock, he will be hiding somewhere. You can trust us that one. Didn't score in the reverse fixture either, where he got 84 minutes. He's overperformed his XG this season, and my last line is it's unsustainable.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I just point out at this stage that everyone should go and have a look at Solly Marsh's Wikipedia page, because it's either Solly, his wife, his other half, somebody is keeping up with this, where every single season has a subheading and then a write-up, which is quite good. And 2016-17, the subheading is prolific season. I was like, I don't remember Solly Marsh having a prolific season in 2016-17. Have a look how many goals he scored. 3. So
right, okay, there we are.
That just goes to show you that maybe buying Solly's goal minutes at this stage of the season, when he scored 3 and 2, might be a bit of a trap, is all I'm going to say.
A prolific start to the season.
Yeah.
I'm going to have egg on my face when we sit down next week and he scored a hat-trick against West Ham. And you're
I look forward to it.
Yeah. His wife will be sliding into your DMs saying, how dare you criticise my Wikipedia page?
Jesus. Right, Sheffield United hosting Manchester City next. This is the supremacy market, so the amount of goals that the favourite will score over the underdog. 2.1 is the midpoint here. Obviously, if United were to beat City, then the makeup would have a negative makeup. So if you're going under 2.1 and Sheffield United win, then you could bring up to, it's not just 2.1 is the winning margin. Any goals over 2, you're going to be winning incrementally above 2.1. If you go higher, right, 3, 2, 1. I'm going lower. So I'll go first because I'm the one out here. I just feel like the season has started not badly for City because they've won both their games, but like things are going wrong. Kevin De Bruyne will not be playing here, as we know, for the next few months. Pep Guardiola won't be in the dugout after his back surgery. The performance against Newcastle was pretty good without being great. The performance against Sevilla midweek was okay. I don't know, they're away from home where they're never quite as dominant anyway, against Sheffield United side, who I don't really fancy, but at least had a seriously good home record last season. They can win this game 2-0 and 3-1, and I would still just be in the right here. And until we see City really kind of cut loose and dominate, and even against Burnley, they didn't. Like Burnley had opportunities in that game. I think the 3-goal margin flattered City on the night. Until I see it and until we see clear evidence that probably the two most important people in this dominant City side in terms of what they add on a match day are no longer there, then I'm going to be going lower here. I mean, it's so tight, and I'm fully aware this could finish a big score, but I'm going lower. Dan, why are you going higher?
I take on board all of the stuff you said.
Thank you very much.
Fair, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but on the flip side.
But
I do, yeah. I think City are a bit of a ticking time bomb and they're about to explode. And I think Sheffield United could be on the receiving end of it, hence why I've gone higher. I think they'll be super keen to give Pep a get well soon present. Mm-hmm. And I think, I mentioned it in the first week, Haaland didn't have the best of times last week. And he very rarely stays quiet for a long period of time, so he could be back. 8
goals in that game back end of last season.
Yeah, we'll push that to one side. And the Kevin De Bruyne stuff is interesting. Obviously, that is a massive miss. There's no denying it. But Julian Alvarez has stepped in quite nicely, and I'm backing him to continue. I think 2.1 is quite a high line, but I'm chasing it. I'm going for it.
Chasing it. Jack?
Well, I'm looking forward to the ticking time bomb soundbite to be going out next week.
I thought ticking time bomb might mean a bad thing as well. Like maybe it's going
they're going to implode.
There to be taken how you like it. But I asked myself, do Man City win this game? And I came back with the answer yes. I always talk to myself all the time, unless I'm with you two guys. Is it by a single goal? I thought probably likely more, and therefore we're in the ballpark here. This is a cracking line by the traders, I think, to be honest. It's really going to be one of those that tempts you in, and I've fallen for that particular bait. Can they survive out Kevin De Bruyne, or can they create chances without him? And I think, yes, step forward, Phil Foden. You've said Alvarez. Obviously, Alvarez got on the score sheet last week, which, again, brilliant. 7 open play chances created by Foden last weekend, which was superb, which is the best in the Premier League. He's now created 9 over his 2 games so far. And as I said, Alvarez on the score sheet as well. They obviously did meet last season, although not in the same league, FA Cup semi-final, so neutral territory. 3-0 win for City there. With a rotated side, with other things on the agenda, that was very, very easy for them. And I've kind of put that into context with that Burnley result, because Burnley did finish 10 points ahead of Sheffield United last season, were the better side. And I'd say Sheffield United are arguably a lot weaker this season at this moment in time, despite the signing of Gus Hamer and one or two others they're now adding in. But I think that they're not in a strong position. So with Juanma Lillo in charge,
Very nice.
I believe.
Very good.
Get well soon, Pep, by the way.
Yeah.
Considered the most influential assistant Pep's ever had.
Okay.
So that's praise indeed.
Tell Leicester fans that.
Okay, Leicester fans. It's the most influential assistant he's ever had.
It's a niche EFL gag. Yeah, fine, carry on.
That's it, I'm done.
Right, okay, well,
On that note,
we're going into the EFL now, which is incredibly exciting.
It is.
My worlds are colliding. Watford hosting Blackburn. This is the total goal line market we're doing here. 2.7 is the midpoint, so 2.6 to sell, 2.8 to buy. Valerian Ishmael's side going up against Yondal Thomason, two players with glittering playing careers. But let's see where we're going here. Higher or lower than 2.7. Watford versus Blackburn, 3-2-1. Okay, yeah, lower for me. I think Watford, despite possessing some decent attacking talent, haven't really. I mean, basically they beat QPR on opening day when QPR were a total and utter mess. Like, honestly, League Two standard performance then. They've picked up a little bit since then. And also in that game, Watford went 4-0 up, and the second half was actually 0-0. Since then, they've drawn 1-0 with Stevenage in the cup and were knocked out. They've drawn 0-0 at home with Plymouth Argyle in a really boring game, and then went to Stoke and had some decent chances, but again, the game finished 1-0 and wasn't particularly open. Up against an Alex Neil side, and you expect Alex Neil sides to always be fairly open and have a lot of goals in their games. With Blackburn, yes, this season, we've seen more goals in their games, like BTTS has landed in all four of their games so far. But in the Hull game last time out, Harry Pickering was sent off early on in the game, and Blackburn created very, very little. The Sam Gallagher goal was against the run of play, shall we say. But I'm more interested in last season than this season, where I think Yondal Thomason showed us much more what he's about over the course of a campaign, and there were not very many goals in Blackburn's games at all. So this just feels to me like a case of two sides, maybe with managers who are more pragmatic in their approach, even they're very different styles, like completely different styles, and quite well matched as well, where I'd find it hard to see either of these sides running away with it. So I'm going unders here, and yeah, lower than 2.7 in the total goals market. Jack, why are you going higher?
It was a tough call, I'm not going to lie, because of that data you then talked about, but a truly superb EFL-focused podcast tweeted something during the week. I don't know if you caught it, George. Did you catch it? Did you catch it?
You're allowed to say the name, I think.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's the Not the Top 20 podcast. Yeah, fantastic. We'll listen for anyone who hasn't done so far. Interesting stat regarding these two sides, actually, that Blackburn are number one for open play XG with 4.66, and Watford are third with 4.21.
Everyone knows XG's rubbish, don't they?
Oh, well, apparently so, yeah. All right, Sean
Just
Dyche.
to clarify that.
Yeah, so you're right. So that 4-0 QPR one was heavily weighted for Watford in that, and failed to hit the back of the net in league action since. But they have created the chances. They're just not taking them. I'm looking through the data on it. So third most shots in the league with 55, average of 18.3, 19 on target. Only Southampton have had more than that. And say goals in all Blackburn games, 4.25 average across all competitions so far this season to start it. Sammy Smodgett's been absolutely all over it so far this season. 2 goals, 1 assist, and he's also picked up a couple of yellow cards, which I like. So, yeah, for me...
And he's missed a pen.
And he's missed a pen. Thank goodness for the EFL expert at the end of the desk. But, yeah, I just felt there was enough madness around those numbers for me to go higher, knowing that that's actually quite an attractive line for me to be able to do that and not lose an awful lot if it does.
It's not a high line for sure. Dan?
Yeah, I think that's the main thing here is the line is quite handsome. I do feel a bit insignificant here amongst you two EFL experts.
What do you mean?
So I don't actually have
Hey, you're a Reading fan, you have to be an EFL expert.
Yeah, but not in the Championship. Wednesday's a long gone.
Oh, salt in the wounds.
Yeah. But yeah, there have been over 2.5 goals in the last 4 of Blackburn's games, and I just think there's going to be goals here. It's going to be nice free-flowing football. I'm going to enjoy it. And 3, it's
Valerian Ishmael and free-flowing football. Who'd have thought it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Lunchtime kick-off. No doubt it'll be sunny. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
It's made for goals.
It's perfect.
Right, finally, the last game we're going to be previewing back into the Premier League, sadly, is Newcastle versus Liverpool, a game that certainly back in the day used to always scream goals. But we're going to look firstly at the Supremacy market here, where Newcastle, with home advantage, are favourites. I'd like to know the last time Newcastle were favourites home to Liverpool in the Premier League. The midpoint is 0.3, so marginal favourites here. Are we going higher or lower than 0.3? 3, 2, 1. This is fun. We basically agreed on everything last week, and I'm pretty sure we've gone against each other. So one of us is going to have a terrible week this week, unless, I guess it can be 50-50.
Yeah, we could be. We'll see.
As is the way, I'll go first because I'm the outlier. I just think Newcastle are really good, basically.
Good answer.
I'm kind of more and more leaning into the fact that, they were the best XG ratio team in open play last season for pretty much the whole campaign, better than City. Like when you compare that to Aston Villa, who even under Emery were basically like midpoint, like were 0 for their XG ratio over that time, and they were just massively overperforming. Like Newcastle's success last season was built on genuinely being a team who created loads of good chances and didn't concede many chances at the other end. Liverpool are obviously a side who possess probably more star quality in their side. And when you look at the way that Luis Diaz started the season, when you consider Alexis McAllister will be playing obviously with his red card being rescinded, there's plenty to like. But I just don't necessarily think that the markets have caught up totally with the fact that Newcastle might genuinely be the best, behind City, maybe second, third or fourth best team in this league. So, I certainly wouldn't be backing them as favourites of neutral venue. I wouldn't be backing them at Anfield necessarily, but I think there is a justification here for them to be marginal favourites. And I think with Trent Alexander-Arnold being an injury doubt as well coming up, that would be a big loss in terms of their creativity from deep for Liverpool. I'm certainly not bullish on it, but I'm just pro Newcastle as it stands right now.
Just a very quick question, which is largely irrelevant to this game, but obviously Newcastle win Champions League action later in the campaign. Is this a time now, would you say, that you want to be on Newcastle and possibly...
I would think so, yeah. I think the fixture congestion, especially because they don't necessarily have the squad depth you'd associate with other Champions League sides, you'd probably want to see it. But right now, there's no reason why they shouldn't. They gave as good as they got against City last weekend, where they lost by a solitary goal. I just think they're a really good side who have continued the season as we saw them leave off last season. Like that, look at the way that they just absolutely demolished Villa last time out. Dan?
Again, I don't disagree with you too much, but enough to go lower. I think this market is so interesting because with that line, any opinion is worth getting involved in this market. So that's just great. But at 0.3, I genuinely think this is going to be a draw, basically, which is why I've gone lower.
Good to get the draw on side, isn't it?
Exactly. But all the rationale I've got here is that suggesting that I think Liverpool will win. We've got the third highest XG in the league this season. And I think the big battle here is the midfield. I mean, it's almost anyone's been talking about so far is Newcastle's midfield and how it will fare against the big boys' midfield. And I think it's just going to be such a great battle. But I don't think either of them are going to come out on top, which is why I'm going for the draw and going lower.
Love that. Jack?
Yeah, interesting enough. I fancy the draw as well. So getting double chance here, Liverpool, who are undefeated in their last 13 league games. Let's not forget, ended the season very well last campaign as well. Newcastle just one shot on target at Man City. Look, it's Man City, so we can't be too hard on them for that, I guess. I was a little bit disappointed in that, given the circumstances around it. But, of course, to counteract that, huge win at St James's Park, and their home faithful will be expecting probably more of the same, I would imagine, in what should be a really, really good, open, exciting game. I think for Liverpool, the McAllister situation is a massive boost for them. Luis Diaz being back fit is another huge boost for them. So it looks like a game for goals. Fancy a high scoring draw. Liverpool also undefeated in the last 13 against Newcastle as well. So I know Newcastle are a different animal from
it's time for Newcastle.
The Stephen Bruce, But only two sides came away from St James's Park with 3 points last season: Arsenal and Liverpool. So I think that all points towards I'm happy to take the double chance.
All I heard there was only 2 teams came away from St James's Park with 3 points there, which I think is good news for my hire. It doesn't matter who it was. Lastly, corners 10 to sell, 10.5 to buy in the same game, so 10.25 is the midpoint here. Yeah, let's have a go on that. 3, 2, 1. Okay, well, I mean, I'm not a massive corners fan, unless there's like a real angle to go at. And I know that Newcastle's corners lines last season was so high. There were only 3 corners against City last time out. It wouldn't be a massive surprise if their game plan, given Liverpool's stature and their ability, is fairly similar here. I think it's interesting you said you think there'll be goals. I mean, Newcastle's success, I think, in large part has been due to their good defensive record, and it wouldn't surprise me if they're better equipped than most teams to stop the likes of Salah, Diaz. I mean, all of them basically. So many of them getting on the ball in dangerous areas, and I just naturally just think that corners lines are just probably set a bit high because people buy, and therefore I'm going lower. Jack?
Well, if I was a better man, I'd have been definitely going lower for what you were going to say. So I thought that's what you were going to say.
Fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there we are. So at least that one we're agreeing on. But yeah, 13 corners in both the games last season. Both sides are known for getting a lot of corners. Admittedly, Liverpool got all 13 when it was at Anfield, but it was a fairly even split here last campaign. 6 and 7, 7 to Liverpool. 6 and 5 in the Newcastle Villa game. So I think with Newcastle at home, I think there is a different philosophy that they take there. And you're right, they were the number 1 corner team last season, so average 8.16 at home, and Liverpool were the second highest away from home. So totals wise, 11.16 was the average for Newcastle home games, and it was 9.68 for Liverpool, so it was actually quite low. They were the 14th lowest, so which is the only one that put me off a bit. But the fact that the EPL averages are a little bit up this season from what they were last season, possibly down to that added time. 3,828 corners last season at 10.07. This season, 207 at 10.89.
There you go, Dan.
Can't argue with it.
Is that it?
Yeah, straight up. No, I think that one thing that I noticed is that when we had this market previously, I think it was 11.5 to buy. So that dropped down to 10.25 midpoint, 10.5 to buy.
Yeah.
Looks like a point profit to me, so I'm going for it.
Easy as that. Right, before we move on to the second round of this week's high or lower, as ever, we've been asking you guys over on Twitter or X what you guys make of these markets. Dan, you've got an idea. 0% they got last time.
Yeah.
So do we even listen to this? Do we put any weight in it at all? Or?
Well, I guess the bar couldn't get any lower. So this week has got to be a positive one.
Yeah.
Well, or at least it has to be, right? Surely.
Wow.
So I'll just quickly read off what they've gone for. So in the Chelsea leading minutes market, 63% of you are buying. So you've gone higher than the 45.5 midpoint.
Shrewd.
Yeah, we'll see. And then Brighton versus West Ham, Twitterverse are buying total goals here at 3.2. 66% of you are expecting lots of goals there.
That one's a win.
That one's definitely a win, isn't it?
Let's hope so.
And then finally, the Newcastle versus Liverpool. This one was very, very close, actually. 51% think that Newcastle will win. I'd almost go as far as to say that's a lower because it's so close that they're all agreeing with me and it's going to be a draw.
What? I mean, that's not lower.
51% of 49.
51% of people think that
it's way too close.
That's
over
way 0.3. That's fine. There
inconclusive.
Democracy, eh?
Yeah.
That is some warped, yeah. Donald would agree. Right, so that is the end of higher or lower there. We'll play a quick game before we let you guys go. This is the higher or lower game where we're going to choose one market. This weekend's Premier League games, and we're going to go through and I'll read out the market. And these guys have to say whether they think it'll be higher or lower than the game before. So this week it's total goal minutes. So as we know, this is where the cumulative total goals that are scored in the game, the minutes they were scored in, added together. So there was a 1-1 draw, and it was the 5th minute and the 30th minute. It would make up 35, and etc. as you go through there. The first game here is Brentford against Palace, which is 126, the midpoint. Okay?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second game, Arsenal against Fulham.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Yeah, you've both
From
got
that
through
week
there.
At least we're together.
That week prep. Good use.
I'll give you the totals, and then if we get a bit closer down, then I'll take them away from you. 169, the midpoint for Arsenal Fulham. Everton against Wolves. Next up. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, both correct. 129, that one. Manchester United hosting Forest is our fourth game. 3, 2, 1. Correct.
Come on.
165.
I don't think I've ever been this far in this game. Come on.
Right, this is the last one I'm going to tell you the value. Burnley against Aston Villa. 3, 2, 1.
A difference of opinion.
And Dan has won it.
There we go. Right.
143.
Oh.
We keep playing.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Sorry.
You wouldn't know.
I'm happy.
143. Congratulations to Dan there.
Yeah.
Finally beating Jack. 17th time lucky. Brighton, West Ham. 3, 2, 1. Correct.
Oh.
Sheffield United against Man City. 3, 2, 1. Correct.
Come on.
Chelsea against Luton. 3, 2, 1. No.
Oh. Wow, great effort.
In fairness,
close.
the midpoint for Sheffield United against Man City is 163. Midpoint for Chelsea against Luton is 164.
Okay,
So
fair enough.
yeah, I mean,
Fair enough.
I don't think we can blame you too much. But I was surprised, Jack, there getting it wrong with a 23 point lower, and you've gone higher.
Yeah, well, that's because I fancy that strongly.
Okay, there you go. In your opinion, it should be higher.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
There you go.
And that's what counts.
Thank you very much for watching Higher or Lower this week. Brought to you by Spreadex and WhoScored. Make sure you check out Spreadex for all of your spread betting needs ahead of this weekend's football. Plenty more sports up there as well. Do remember that your losses can exceed your initial deposit. And make sure you go over and check out oddschecker for all your fixed odds betting needs, and subscribe to the oddschecker YouTube channel where you can find every episode of Higher or Lower and plenty more preview content across sports that go up on there. Thank you very much to Jack. Thank you to Dan. We'll be back again next week to look over. Yeah, I'm quite nervous about this, given that I've basically said different to you guys for every single one. We'll see how we got on, and we'll be looking to preview the weekend's games ahead as well. So look forward to that. Enjoy the football. Hopefully a bit of insight in there for you. Please do ensure that you're gambling responsibly.